European gas prices have soared by around 35% after a series of attacks on crucial energy infrastructure in the Gulf. Qatar said an Iranian strike had caused substantial damage to its main gas facility, the biggest in the world, while there were also attacks on refineries in Kuwait and Israel. The price of Brent Crude also rose to around $112 a barrel. US Defense Secretary Pete Hegseth insisted that their strategy was on track, without giving any indication of when the war might end, while Iran warned that it would act with zero restraint if attacks on its infrastructure continued. Here's our economics editor, Helia Ibrahimi.
This is the single biggest source of gas power in the world. South Pars gas field now on fire. The attack and counterattack across Pars, but also Kuwait, Saudi Arabia and Haifa in Israel, has ratcheted the war up to new highs. Gas prices shot up by more than 30%, oil surging again, the bedrock of global energy now doubling since the crisis began, and the cost of UK debt leaping as the Bank of England warns of the inflation shock to come.
It's been a hectic night, hectic evening. And I think for the first time, we really saw that sort of the energy infrastructure of the Middle East was involved in this. But this is the heart of the gas industry being attacked, a significant escalation, because this will have impact not only on prices today and supply and demand today, but potentially also supply of LNG for the rest of the year.
The North Field, an energy resource like no other.
But Qatar Energy CEO confirmed fears today, saying Iran's attacks had wiped out 17% of the country's LNG capacity for at least 3 to 5 years. On the back of that news, anxieties deepened across global markets. The Bank of England said there was no doubt inflation would now be higher.
We've held interest rate today because there has been, of course, a huge change since we last met as a committee, and that is the outbreak of the conflict in the Middle East and the impact that's having on energy prices, and therefore is and will have in terms of prices in this country.
It's not just at the fuel pump. UK households now face a squeeze on their mortgages too. Not only were interest rates not cut today, but traders now think we face at least 2 hikes, possibly 3 this year alone. And it wasn't just the Bank of England sounding the alarm.
The war in the Middle East is a downside risk to the euro area economy, adding to the volatile global policy environment. A prolonged war could increase energy prices further, erode incomes, and make firms and households more reluctant to invest and spend.
There's 1,800 trillion cubic feet of gas shared between Qatar and Iran. Iranian gas is critical for keeping the lights on in Iran. It's used in homes, industry, and even 2 million cars. Qatar exports 20% of the world's entire LNG, most of it going to Asia. They use it across manufacturing, petrochemicals, and heavy-duty trucking. But Europe is also vulnerable. Gas is used in electricity, but also for packaging and fertilizer. While the US actually produces more LNG than Qatar, gas shortages have an impact across manufacturing, including the use of helium in semiconductors and MRI machines. And this conflict is turning foreign policy objectives on their heads. The pain on oil prices prompting the unusual suggestion that while the military effort is ramped up, sanctions on Iranian oil might be removed.
We may unsanction the Iranian oil that's on the water. In essence, we will be using the Iranian barrels against the Iranians to keep the price down for the next 10 or 14 days as we continue this campaign.
But oil traders said the instability could upend the market.
We have gone from being dependent on Putin, being dependent on the Middle East, and you can also say being dependent on Donald Trump. So it's a nasty combination.
It's a nasty cocktail on the ground and a nasty mix for the global economy. President Trump may say he'll protect the world from higher oil prices, but it's not clear how that's possible when it's supply that's now being targeted.
Well, President Trump first declared that he knew nothing about Israel's plan to attack the South Pass gas field between Iran and Qatar. Later, he claimed that he'd spoken to Benjamin Netanyahu, telling him, don't do that. So which one is it? Let's get more now from our US editor, Anushka Astana. Anushka, what's the mood like today in the White House?
Well, we have seen the president in the White House meeting with the Japanese Prime Minister, and as is so often the case in these situations, Donald Trump looked very calm, but we know that they are worried, not least because after already easing sanctions on Russia, adding to its war effort financially, they are now considering lifting sanctions on Iran. At one point, Donald Trump was asked about that, and he was also asked, will you consider putting troops on the ground? And he answered the troops question. He said, I'm not thinking about putting troops anyway. But he swerved the question on oil, and no wonder, because it's pretty awkward, isn't it, to explain how you're going to give a financial boost to a country where you're trying to systematically dismantle the regime. Now, look, it was very friendly in there. He's a close ally of the Japanese Prime Minister. She said what he likes to hear. I quote, she said, I believe that only you, Donald, can bring peace to the world. But even she was talking about the scale of the economic situation that we are facing right now. And it is the first time that we have seen this divide between the US and Israel when Donald Trump was asked about the fact that Israel hit the South Pass gas field. Have a listen to this.
Mr. President, have you talked to Prime Minister Netanyahu about attacking the oil and gas fields?
Yeah, I did. I told him don't do that, and he won't do that. We didn't discuss. You know, we do. We're independent. We get along great. It's coordinated, but on occasion he'll do something, and if I don't like it, and so we're not doing that anymore.
We really are living in an upside-down world, aren't we? Was he urging Japan to help the US?
Yeah, he was urging Japan in his Trumpian way. I say Trumpian because he started by saying, we don't need anyone, we don't need any help. But then he suggested that it would be appropriate for countries to help. Japan, he said, actually got 90% of its oil through the Strait of Hormuz. And then another day and another pop at Europe.
Parts of Europe, get a lot of their oil through the Strait. We get none, practically. We're less than 1%. We don't have to be any percent. We don't even, I think we do it just to be nice. We're defending the Strait for everybody else. And then in the case of NATO, they don't want to help us defend the Strait, and they're the ones that need it. But now they're getting much nicer because they're seeing my attitude. They're getting much nicer. As far as I'm concerned, it's too late.
When he says they're getting much nicer, he's perhaps talking to a statement we've had today, including NATO countries, the UK, Germany and France, but also Japan. They've been talking about how to help in the Strait of Hormuz, saying they're willing to give appropriate help, although UK have been pushing on that. Did it help Keir Starmer? No. Donald Trump had another go at the UK Prime Minister as well.
Anushka, thank you very much indeed. Well, Western allies have been calling for restraint, with the French President Emmanuel Macron urging an end to strikes on civilian infrastructure, saying that civilians must be protected from military escalation, while Iran executed 3 men, including a teenager who was accused of killing police officers during the anti-government protests in January. Here's Jonathan Rugman.
By attacking this oil refinery in Saudi Arabia last night, the Iranians have deliberately spread the cost of this conflict way beyond the Gulf. But of all its neighbours, it's Iran's delicate peace with Saudi Arabia which is most dangerously shattered.
We have reserved the right to take military actions if deemed necessary. If Iran doesn't stop, that is the mood also I heard in this room earlier, immediately, I think there will be almost nothing that can re-establish that trust.
Gulf Arab states are also angry with Israel's attack on Iran's biggest gas field, an escalation which, if it's repeated, the Iranians claim they will answer in kind. Aside from what this does to energy prices and the environment, one Iranian in Tehran told us it could increase opposition to the war itself.
Damage to our energy infrastructure is what concerns people most, on top of economic problems, including unemployment and inflation. If there's one thing which galvanizes people into being more united, it would be attacking the country's infrastructure, because sooner or later the Ayatollahs will have to go, but the country must remain for the people.
In the meantime, the regime is rallying around its martyrs. This the second day of the funeral of Ali Larijani, the security chief, and his son, assassinated by the Israelis earlier this week. And for those wavering in their loyalty to the Islamic Revolution, fear can still be used to stifle dissent. These 3 protesters were executed this morning, found guilty in their trial of waging war against God and in support of Israel and the United States. One of them was Saleh Mohammadi, a member of Iran's national wrestling team. The authorities released this video of the men supposedly reenacting their crime of killing 2 policemen, confessions obtained under duress. The first men to be hanged since the January protests, and probably not the last.
The Islamic Republic fears the people. It believes that now the leaders and high-ranking officials have been killed and it's become militarily weaker, that there is a risk that people will return to the streets and take power away from the regime. So fear of the people is what drives these executions.
And after 3 weeks of war, Iran is still attacking Israel, true to its motto of resist and survive, and determined that Donald Trump should not be the only one who decides how long this conflict will last.
The Lebanese President Joseph Aoun has called for a ceasefire and negotiations with Israel as he met the French Foreign Minister in Beirut today. Lebanon's health ministry said that more than 1,000 people had so far been killed in the country since the latest escalation of the conflict between Israel and the Iranian-backed militia Hezbollah. The European Union called on Israel to stop its strikes on Lebanon, saying it was deeply concerned over the devastating humanitarian consequences. Now, while we've been on air, the Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu has been giving a press conference. He claimed that Iran was no longer able to enrich uranium or make ballistic missiles, warning, "We will crush them entirely, all those capabilities." Netanyahu said that the war with Iran would take as long as necessary. Well, earlier I spoke to the president of Israel, Pete Hegseth, who was inspecting damage caused by a fragment of an Iranian missile which came down near Tel Aviv. I began by asking if he was surprised by the capability which Iran has shown so far in this war.
The facts are that we are undermining all of their capabilities in a multitude of issues, from nuclear to industrials to military capabilities, and also to the coercion and terrible attitude that they're taking towards their people.
But instead of regime change, what you're still getting is regime resilience, aren't you?
I don't know, again, you know, how can you judge? Do you know what's going on in their corridors?
Well, they're still firing missiles.
It's true.
And not just at you, but also
true,
the Gulf
but
states.
that's not the way one judges the capability of a nation. Before the war, they were rushing to the bomb. They were rushing to 20,000 ballistic missiles. Now they're going down and down and down. Their nation is fed up, and their capabilities of coercing and fighting their own people, who, by the way, they killed about 35,000 or 50,000 2 months ago, are now slowly starting to wake up. Now, this is not
But they're not on the streets demonstrating against the regime. They're too scared.
The objective of the war, of course, was first and foremost to prevent the imminent danger from them.
Right. Did you get permission from the Americans yesterday to bomb the South Pass natural gas field, which is shared by Qatar and Iran?
So as you know all too well, the President of Israel is a head of state without executive powers. I'm not involved in the operational side, and therefore I won't go into the details. All I'm saying, the grand picture is that this is a war which must be fought in order to change the course of history in the Middle East. I think President Trump referred to it, and I think his words are the ones that matter in this case right now.
And this has become an economic war, hasn't it? And the Iranians have shown that they have the chokehold on the world economy through the Straits of Hormuz.
So it's about time that the world says no more, and the world understands that whoever closes international maritime routes is a villain that must be dealt with. I'm not advocating war. I'm a person of peace. All I want really is a peace in the Middle East. But sometimes, and this we learned from the Brits first, sometimes you need to take on action and fight so that you change the course of history.
But you didn't check that with your friends in the Gulf. The Americans didn't bother consulting the Qataris or the Emiratis or the Saudis. It's you and America alone, and ultimately, you know, there's a very high price to pay for that in the long term.
So we will have to see the outcome of the war. We believe that it will be at the end not too long and will bring results. And moreover, I say...
But what results?
Wait a minute. I say moreover, like I said here, to my Muslim brothers and sisters, that had we waited, it could have been much, much worse.
Okay. In America, there's deep division about this war. The American public is not in favor. We saw yesterday divisions in the Trump cabinet, which is normally a very loyal body, about the reasons for this war, the reasons given to the American people by their president. Are you afraid that President Trump will just declare victory in a couple of weeks from now, even though there hasn't been regime change, there might still be military capabilities, and he will do so for domestic political reasons?
So I believe that the partnership here is extremely strong, also with major Arab countries who are under the onslaught of Iran and realize...
But they're furious.
Wait a minute. You say they're furious, and I tell you that they all understand that they have one way to go, is this partnership of a coalition of nations who wants to seek peace and are fighting and standing up to the Iranians and saying to them, no more.
Okay, just one more. President Trump has called you weak and pathetic for not agreeing to a pardon of the Prime Minister, Benjamin Netanyahu. Have you made peace with Donald Trump?
I haven't spoken to Donald Trump recently, and I've said already time and time again, we respect him tremendously for what he's doing in the Middle East, but I'm the president of Israel and I will obey Israeli law only.
Isn't the point of this that the president can turn on his best friends on a dime? He's done it with us, the Brits, right? We're currently public enemy number one in the Oval Office. He can do it with Israel too. He can walk away and then you've lost your protector in the Middle East.
We haven't lost any protection.
But you
We're
might
a very strong nation. And
but you need the Americans.
We believe in the partnership with the United States of America, and we believe that Donald Trump is leading the free world in the right direction.
Until he heads out for the exit and says goodbye.
That's your conclusion, not mine.
It's a possibility. Mr. President, thank you very much.
You're fair.
And you can see the full version of my interview with the Israeli President, Yitzhak Herzog, online, where you can also find the latest edition of The Forecast, our podcast that I recorded today with Helia Ebrahimi, our economics editor. From here in Jerusalem, let's go back to Kathy in London. Kathy.
Thanks, Matt. Well, earlier I spoke to Esmail Baghai, who's spokesperson for Iran's Ministry of Foreign Affairs, and began by asking if Iran was engaged in a military conflict they cannot win.
They have killed so many Iranians, they have attacked our civilian infrastructure, they have attacked residential areas, and now they are claiming that they are winning.
Yeah, but you're not just defending yourselves, though, are you? You're also attacking Qatar, one of your neighbours. Why attack them if your quarrel is with the US?
We are not attacking any country. We are exercising our right to self-defense.
You're attacking a gas facility in Qatar.
The reality is that the United States and Israel are abusing the soil, territories, and assets
you're not
scattered
attacking
around us.
Okay, but you're not merely attacking US assets, you're also attacking a gas field in Qatar and other Gulf neighbours. I just wonder why.
Tell me, who has started this war in the first place? And who has started attacking our gas field?
I wonder what you say to your former allies in the Gulf who are calling for you to stop the strikes on civilian infrastructure, stop the strikes on ships going through the Strait of Hormuz. Will you listen to them? Oman, Qatar, these are countries that you've cooperated with in the recent past.
Sure. We do not feel any animosity or hostility toward the nations of the region.
You're attacking Qatar's gas field. Abu Dhabi and Kuwait are under attack too, just in the last few hours. That is not a defensive act, is it? That's Iran lashing out.
We are only targeting those assets, those installations that partly or wholly belongs to the United States.
Let's talk about your own self-interest and how you're harming the Iranian economy with the paralysis of the Strait of Hormuz. Yes, it's damaging the global economy, but Iran's economy too. You depend on that. I wonder how soon you hope to get that strait opened again.
Do you expect Iran to let the warring parties, the aggressors' ships and vessels, to pass the Strait of Hormuz? As you know, there have been many vessels passing through the Strait of Hormuz.
There's a trickle of vessels passing through. So how soon would you like to see it properly reopened, and has it been mined?
We have to take these measures in order to make sure that this strait is not abused by the United States and its aggression partners against Iran.
Do those measures include mining the strait?
I'm not going to talk about military tactics of the Iranian armed forces.
But you'll know that America says that you were just weeks away from developing a nuclear weapon. You possess 440 kilograms of highly enriched uranium. That was the basis for the war here. Iran was a threat.
The Pentagon said there was no imminent threat from Iran. And please remember that in June, they themselves claimed that Iran's nuclear program was obliterated.
How long can Iran keep fighting back?
As long as it takes.
But clearly this war has to come to an end somehow. Are you open to talks to bring it to an end?
Talk to whom?
But what is the end game here?
They insist that they are going to continue their death and destruction on Iranian. They are saying proudly they do not believe in any rule of law.
There's been no sign of Mojtaba Khamenei, the supreme leader, the new supreme leader. Has he left the country? Is he in Moscow receiving medical treatment, as has been reported?
Iranian leaders are proud enough to stay in their home and fight. Look what happened to our supreme leader. He was assassinated when he was in his office. And I don't know what is the source of this propaganda, this psychological warfare that you are raising it as questions.
So will you state as fact that the new supreme leader is alive and well and in Iran?
Of course.
Israel is asking the Iranian people to rise up and take control of their country. What are the consequences if they do that?
What happened in January was the result of the United States and Israel infiltrating in peaceful protesters, gunmen shooting down police forces and peaceful protesters.
It wasn't Israel and America, though, was it, killing the thousands of people who were protesting, who were calling for freedom?
When the United States president called for more killing, he said if there are more killings, he would intervene, ma'am. And that was a message given to those infiltrators more. So everyone knows it was part of their scheme to make Iran insecure.
Ismail Baghai, thank you very much for joining us.
Thank you.